hands where I can see them. Now. Don't make this harder.
I'm not reaching for anything. I stopped like you wanted.
You don't get to tell me what you're doing. You've been following me for weeks. Why?
I've been waiting. You never finished what you started.
Waiting for what? You think this is some kind of game? Answer me.
For you to finally write it down the right way, the night you decided the truth was inconvenient.
The cruiser's lights cut through the fog at 2:17 a.m. Red and blue bleeding into the wet asphalt of County Route 6. The dash cam was rolling. The radio was silent. And the man behind the wheel, 20 years on the force, decorated, methodical, felt something he hadn't felt since his first night in uniform. Fear. Not the kind trained out of you, the kind that knows your name. He would later say the stop lasted 7 minutes. The truth lasted much longer. If you're drawn to stories where truth hides in procedure, where fear wears a badge and silence has weight, stay with this one. Watch closely. Listen between the lines. Because some encounters don't end when the lights turn off. The cruiser hummed beneath him like a held breath. Midnight had already passed, but the night refused to cool. The kind of lingering heat that made sweat gather under a Kevlar vest and patience wear thin. County Route 6 stretched ahead in a long, empty ribbon, 2 lanes cutting through marshland and scrub pine, the borders between counties blurring somewhere in the darkness. He'd driven this road for years, knew every bend, every reflective marker, every place deer like to hesitate before darting across. At 2:17 a.m., the radar chirped. 70 in a 65. Barely worth the paperwork, but policy was policy, especially on night shift, when supervisors trusted numbers more than instincts. He eased the cruiser forward, lights still dark, matching speed. The sedan ahead was gray, late model, clean lines, no visible damage. It held steady, no braking, no acceleration, just there. He clicked the lights. Red and blue spilled across the road, splashing against the trees, the fog lifting low from the marsh like breath from sleeping lungs. The sedan slowed immediately, pulling onto the shoulder with textbook compliance. No hesitation, no drama. He radioed it in, voice automatic. Location, time, reason for stop. Dispatch acknowledged, then went quiet. He parked at an angle, wheels turned outward, training drilled in since the academy, and sat for half a second longer than usual, a habit he'd picked up over the years. Let them sit, let them feel the weight of being seen. He activated the body cam. The soft click was louder than it should have been. As he stepped out, the night seemed to close around him. No traffic, no insects. Even the wind had gone still. His boots crunched on gravel as he approached the driver's side, hand resting near his holster, not in threat but in memory. Muscle memory never forgets. The window rolled down before he spoke. The man inside was pale, features indistinct in the low light, as if his face refused to settle into focus. Mid-30s, maybe, or older. The eyes stayed forward. Evening, the officer said. Calm. Neutral. You know why I stopped you? A pause. Too long. Then the answer came. Quiet and measured. Speed. The voice was flat, not nervous, not defensive, just delayed. Like sound echoing off a far wall. License and registration, he said. The man reached slowly, movements precise. The documents were handed over, edges dry, unbent. The license photo made the officer's stomach tighten. Same face, same eyes. But the issue date was wrong. Too old. Fonts, outdated. He didn't comment. Not yet. Sit tight, he said, already stepping back. Back in the cruiser, the MDT flickered as he entered the plate. Nothing came up. No record. He tried again. The screen froze, then reset itself with a sharp electronic chirp. He frowned, checked the radio. Still silent. Dispatch should have been asking for status by now. He looked up. The shoulder was empty. No sedan. No taillights fading into the dark. No engine noise. Just fog rolling back into place, swallowing the road like it had never been disturbed. He stepped out again, heart ticking faster now, scanning the ditch, the tree line, the stretch of asphalt ahead and behind. There were no tire marks, no gravel scatter, nothing. He keyed the radio. Dispatch, Unit 12. Vehicle fled. He stopped. The words didn't fit. Fled implied urgency. Panic. This was something else. Dispatch, he tried again. Confirm last transmission, static answered. Then, faintly, a voice not dispatch. Too close. Too familiar. You didn't finish the stop. He turned. The man was standing behind him, just outside the wash of the cruiser's lights. Silence pressed in, thick and undeniable. Training told him to command. But another instinct, older and quieter, whispered that this encounter had already crossed a line procedure couldn't follow. He swallowed, forcing his voice steady. Sir. Step back. The man didn't move. I've been waiting, he said. And somewhere deep in the officer's chest, a memory stirred, one he had filed away years ago. Stamped closed. Cleared by a signature that had never felt like his own. The lights continued to flash. Red. Blue. Red. The night did not blink. The first official complaint arrived without a complainant. It appeared in the system at 6:42 a.m., flagged as a CAT anomaly, routed automatically to the watch commander's inbox. No name, no badge number, just a location, County Route 6, and a notation that read, * unresolved contact. Officer disengaged prior to completion. *. The software treated it like a clerical error, something to be closed with a keystroke and a shrug. But errors don't usually come with timestamps that match officers' heartbeats. By the end of the week, there were 3 more. One came from a patrol unit that swore it had been paced by a sedan that never showed on radar. Another from a deputy whose dash cam recorded 6 minutes of empty road, while his radio captured a man calmly reciting a date wrong year, correct day over an open channel. The reports were quiet, careful. No one used the word times ghost asterisk. They used times malfunction asterisk, interference asterisk, environmental factors asterisk. The language of people who wanted to stay employed. He requested the files under a routine review pretext, citing policy 310.4 supervisory discretion in the interest of officer safety. The lieutenant approved it without comment. Doors stayed closed a little longer when he passed. Conversations paused, then resumed in softer tones. The building smelled of coffee and copier toner, the familiar comfort of routine masking something brittle underneath. In the records room, the lights buzzed faintly overhead. He sat at a terminal and pulled footage frame by frame. Parking lots at night, shoulders of empty roads, reflections where none should be. In one clip, a figure stood just outside the cone of headlights, barely visible, like a thought refusing to surface. The timestamp was clean, the metadata intact. No sign of tampering. "What are you looking for?" a voice asked. He turned to see the sergeant leaning in the doorway, arms crossed, posture casual but eyes alert. A man who knew how to read rooms and people. "Patterns," he said. The sergeant nodded once. "Careful where you find them." That night, the call came in just before shift change. An automated alert from the municipal lot behind the old courthouse. Motion detected. Camera activated. He arrived first, the lot washed in sodium vapor light, long shadows stretching like accusations. The air felt heavier there, trapped between brick walls and years of unresolved business. The camera stood on its metal pole, lens dark. He checked the monitor in his cruiser. The screen flickered, then stabilized. A man stood in the center of the frame, hands at his sides, face finally clear. Not pale now, solid, present. He looked straight into the camera, then slightly past it toward the cruiser. "You found the file," the man said, voice calm, almost relieved. He stepped out slowly, keeping his hands visible. I reopened it. A pause. The man's expression shifted, not anger, not satisfaction, something like fatigue. "They closed it wrong," he said. "I know," he replied. Silence settled, thick but not hostile. The cruiser's engine idled, a low mechanical heartbeat. He thought of the policies he'd memorized, the ones about evidence integrity, about duty to intervene. None of them mentioned the dead. All of them mentioned responsibility. "What do you want?" he asked. The man glanced toward the courthouse, then back. "A record," he said. "That doesn't disappear." The camera feed glitched, then steadied. When it cleared, the lot was empty again, but the footage remained. Timestamp intact, audio clean. By morning, Internal Affairs had the clip. And for the first time in 12 years, the system had something it couldn't quietly misplace. The interview room was smaller than he remembered. Same scuffed table, same 2 chairs bolted to the floor. The clock above the door ticked loud enough to feel intentional, each second a reminder that time, once logged, could no longer be argued with. Fluorescent lights flattened everything faces. Uniforms, excuses. Internal Affairs sat across from him in practiced neutrality. A captain he knew by reputation, not friendship. A civilian investigator with a legal pad already half-filled. The recorder on the table blinked red. "State your name and badge number for the record," the captain said. He did. Clearly. No hesitation. They started where procedure always started. Policy, timeline, chain of events. He answered the way he'd been trained to answer. Voice steady, language precise. County Route 6. Time of stop. CAD anomalies. Body cam malfunction. He could hear himself from the outside, a man fluent in the grammar of compliance. Then the investigator slid the tablet across the table. The parking lot footage filled the screen. The man standing still beneath the lights, looking directly at the camera. Speaking words that shouldn't have existed, preserved now in clean digital audio. The captain didn't react. "Do you recognize the individual in this recording?" He took a breath, felt it settle low in his chest. "Yes." "From where?" "From a case I worked 12 years ago," he said. "A fatal hit and run." The investigator's pen paused. They asked about that night. Not accusatory, methodical. He described the rain, the body in the ditch, the supervisor's hand on his shoulder, steering him toward the report car. He quoted policy numbers without looking them up, evidence logging within 4 hours, scene preservation until relieved, jurisdictional coordination requirements. Each one a rule he'd followed just enough to say he had. "What did you omit?" the captain asked. The word landed cleanly. "Not times mistake asterisk. Not times error asterisk. Omit." He swallowed. "The witness's certainty," he said. I softened it, logged it as unreliable. I didn't challenge the delay in evidence intake. I didn't push when the case stalled. Why? Because I was young? Because I wanted approval? Because the supervisor said it was messy? Because the county line mattered more than the kid who crossed it? None of that belonged in the record. So he chose the truest answer he could defend. "Because it was easier," he said. Silence followed, not judgmental, not forgiving, just procedural. The captain nodded once, as if checking a box only he could see. They moved on to the recent incidents, the anomalies, the footage, the voice on the radio. The investigator asked the question everyone had been avoiding. "Do you believe this is supernatural?" He looked at the recorder, at the blinking red light, at the idea of belief, how small it felt next to consequence. "I believe the system responded when it was finally forced to," he said. "However it had to." The captain leaned back slightly. "We don't log ghosts," he said. "No," he agreed. "You log outcomes." Another pause. The clock kept time. They discussed next steps. Reopening the cold case under new review authority, independent oversight, referral to the State Bureau, bypassing county jurisdiction entirely, mandatory audit of evidence handling procedures from that year, training revisions. All of it spoken calmly, as if they were discussing budget adjustments instead of moral failure. Finally, the captain asked, "Are you prepared to submit a formal statement accepting responsibility for your role?" He didn't answer right away. In his mind, he saw the road again. The lights. The man standing just outside their reach, waiting not for vengeance, but for accuracy. "Yes," he said. When the interview ended, he stepped into the hallway alone. The building felt different now, quieter. Not because fewer people were inside, but because fewer things were being avoided. As he walked past the bulletin board of commendations and policy updates, his radio chirped once, just static. But it felt lighter than before. The press release went out at 9 a.m. on a Tuesday, time to land between traffic reports and weather, reopening a cold case, independent review, cooperation with state authorities. The language was careful, scrubbed clean of anything that hinted at why times now asterisk. There was no mention of County Route 6 after midnight, no reference to anomalies or footage that didn't fit. Institutions don't confess, they adjust. He watched it unfold from his kitchen table, resignation letter already submitted, effective immediately. Not suspended, not terminated, resigned in good standing. A phrase that sounded like mercy but felt more like punctuation. He folded the letter once, then again, slid it into an envelope he would never need to reopen. The road was quieter after that. Night shift logs showed fewer calls along that stretch, fewer flickers, fewer unexplained gaps. Officers still drove at policy-required coverage, but they did so with a different posture now, eyes lingering where they used to skim. Training bulletins went out weeks later, dense with procedural language. Evidence escalation protocols, supervisory override limits, mandatory cross-jurisdiction review for fatalities. Reform always looked like paperwork. That was its strength and its curse. He returned his badge on a Thursday afternoon. The desk clerk took it without ceremony, logged the serial number, slid it into a drawer already half full. Metal against metal. Final. As he turned to leave, the clerk hesitated. Route 6, the man said quietly. They put a marker out there. It wasn't official. No unveiling, just a small reflective sign near the bend where the marsh dipped low, placed by the county under pressure from the review board, in memory of a life lost. No names of officers, no explanations, just acknowledgement. He drove there once. Parked on the shoulder with the engine off, hazard lights ticking softly. The air felt normal now, heavy with summer insects, distant traffic humming faintly. No pressure, no sense of being watched. He stood by the marker, hands in his pockets, and waited, unsure for what. Nothing came. And that, he realized, was the point. Justice didn't arrive like a clearing storm. It arrived like maintenance unseen, uncelebrated, necessary. The ghost had never wanted spectacle. It wanted the record corrected, the system forced to look at what it had trained itself to blur. As he walked back to the car, the marker caught the last of the light, reflecting briefly before the sun dipped below the trees. For a moment, the road looked almost peaceful, almost ordinary. He drove away without turning on the radio. Behind him, County Route 6 stretched on, empty and accountable, carrying forward the quiet weight of what had finally been finished and what, at last, no longer needed to follow anyone home.